So I actually think companies are getting it. I think on sustainability, that's clear. Unilever with its virgin plastics pledge, Starbucks taking straws out of cups. Similarly, on wages, Walmart's raising wages. There's retraining going on at Tyson Foods. You know, people are getting it. You may argue that it's too late, but the reality is that we also need a situation, especially if government and business actually look like a seesaw in the playground.
All right, Richard, one more for me, because before Jeff comes in, is that there's a survey out later today from PwC. Climate, the environment, comes in at number 11. This, dare I say it, and this is what some people might say, self-serving Davos man has got over-regulation as their number one. That is outrageous at this stage of events, isn't it?
Again, I think that the smart business will recognize that, you know, we're in a very parlous place. And if we don't get this right, if business isn't seen as a force for good, we're going to have overregulation, overreaction, more populism, more nationalism. There is an opportunity moment here if people really get behind job retraining. That's the central issue of our time, because more than 40% of people are going to lose their jobs in one way or another because of Fourth Industrial Revolution. If that's the case, we have a responsibility to retrain them. And otherwise, you know, they're going to be angry. And that's really what we're seeing in our study. The developed markets are saying, hey, business, act, don't just talk.
The geographical split is quite interesting here, because it's in the developed markets primarily that these trust issues keep coming up over and over again. Why do you think there's a difference between how the Middle Eastern respondents and the Asian respondents are more positive, it seems, about their government and about business than we see in the developed world?
Well, I think there's still a buying into the proposition that, you know, I don't care really what system I'm working under, as long as I'm doing better, that's fine. But in the developed world, there's also another problem, like in the UK, which is now the #2 from the bottom country in our trust study, believe it or not. The mass class divide is massive. You know, this is a new phenomenon over the last 3 or 4 years. It started in the US, UK, France, but now it's gone transversal. Saudi Arabia, Germany, Canada have 20-plus point differences between a mass and elite. And a lot of it actually has to do with trust in media. In the UK, trust in media is 30%, whether you're Tory or whether you're Labour. Yeah, same thing with Republicans in the US. They have walked away from media. So what's the basis of fact? We have to have truth.
We talked about trust in media. We talked about trust in business. Well, what about trust in government? Because that is part of it as well. Is it the role of Davos, and this came up at the Global Risk Report as well, is it the role of Davos to lobby the president when he comes in today, President Trump that is, there are other presidents here as well, of course, to lobby President Trump and say, you've got to get on board with some of these topics? Because I don't think, dare I say it, that stakeholder capitalism, that trust and that climate are the top 3 issues on the in tray of President Trump this year. And I think people will laugh, but it's true, that it's nowhere near his top 10 priorities.
Look, we have to have government work better. It's got to be competent, but it also has to be seen as ethical. And so actually, I think business can help in this process. And I want to go back to tech for a second, because for the first time, we've seen a big crack in the edifice of tech as the most trusted industry. In 1/3 of the countries, it's no longer that. And in fact, in countries like the UK, US, Canada, 10-point drops in trust this year alone in tech. Government and tech have to work together on a framework on AI, on privacy, data protection. These are issues that require both. And in fact, government's much more trusted about income inequality and sustainability by 2 to 1.
So you would see this as a mandate for greater regulation of the tech sector, specifically on areas of individual identification and data?
There's no question that government's going to have a bigger role in all of this, because, in fact, people see it as more fair and somehow more representative. But tech is going to be smart if it gets ahead.
And yet one of the stories here that we're going to talk a lot about today is the potential for a breakthrough on the idea of taxation on digital companies, something the French and the Europeans have been pushing for largely, and that we know President Trump is resistant to, and the Americans are reluctant to see taxes on US digital companies. This feeds back into this whole idea of who's paying their dues and this question of inequality and where governments get revenue from. Do you think we need to see a more comprehensive agreement around this as well?
Again, for a company, just think it through. Actually, competence is only 1/4 of what constitutes trust. 3/4 is what is ethical behavior. Ethical behavior includes paying your taxes and being part of a solution around jobs and retraining. That's a big tent on ethical behavior.
We've been told to wrap to break, Richard. Quickly, 92% of employees want CEOs to speak out on ethics, inequality. They need to get political. They're not going to, are they? Because they know that the next government's only round the corner.
It's 92% want CEOs to speak up. And it's about sustainability, diversity. It's about LGBT. It's about leadership. Time to go.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.